shotgun set. 3 rushers for the Niners. Manning back to throw. He zips one to the left to the end zone. Touchdown Giants. Mario Manningham.
You're listening to Big Lead Sports with Ryan and Corey Bonini.
Yeah. That's right. This is Big Lead Sports on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius 210 XM 87. He is Corey Bonini. I am Ryan Bonini, and joining us right now is a special guest, Chris Anthony from Fantasyomatic.com. If you haven't heard Chris before, he typically hangs out with us on Tuesday nights. And Chris, man, I'm sorry that we dropped the Giants promo right there on you. I know the hangover the last couple of weeks has had to be difficult for you.
Yeah, I just got the shakes there for a second. I appreciate that. But yeah, Chris, thanks for giving me a week off. That's at the very least, I appreciate that, right?
Well, I've been told that crying on the air for 15 minutes is usually not a good thing for the audience, so I wanted to give you a little bit of time to recover and then get back into the mix now. And I know you've had some time, so you're back into the numbers where you always are. We've got 10 days before we get into this big game, this big rematch between the Patriots and the Giants. What are the numbers staring at you right now and saying, you know what, this is the team to beat in this upcoming game?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, obviously, Patriots are favored. Anybody that you're going to talk to about this, both of these teams match up exceptionally well. They've had some history already this year. A lot of people are going to look at some of that game film, or some of the film from the Week 9 game. But I think the most interesting thing here is just really, we're kidding around a little bit about the Green Bay matchup with the Giants, but the Giants match up against the Patriots in very similar ways here. The Patriots defense, obviously, second only to Green Bay in giving up passing yardage. It's a really tough matchup here for the Patriots defense against quarterbacks, against wide receivers, even against the running backs. The only thing that they really do well is match up well against tight ends, but I don't think they're going to have to worry about that too much because those wide receivers are going to be very active. There's this one stat that's been popping out at us here as we've been looking over this stuff, and I'm wondering what you guys think about this. Patriots have allowed 70 completions of 20 yards or more, which is it actually comes out to be about 4.5 of those completions a game, which is insane. Belichick's seen a little bit of improvement, after the midpoint of the season, and most notably, Devin McCourty, who has the dubious distinction of being one of 2 players in the NFL who have allowed more than 1,000 receiving yards. He actually didn't allow a catch last week. So it's actually kind of interesting. But when you talk about a Patriots defense giving up 4.5 big play 20-yard games or more per game, then you look at the rankings for the deep passing players. You look at Victor Cruz; he's number 2 in the NFL at big deep passes, 20 yards or more. Actually, Hakeem Nicks is number 11 in there, and he's had some, missed some time because of injury. And even Mario Manningham, who's been kind of picking up a little bit recently, is only number 25 on that list. And Eli Manning, 7th-rated quarterback for deep passes of 20 yards or more. So I think that's the stat that really jumps out. I mean, it might be overly obvious, if the Giants can get down the field early, they might be able to get Brady on his heels. But that one looks very interesting to me against this Patriots defense.
Well, that's kind of been the MO of the Patriots defense most of the year. They've given up big plays to the wide receiver position. They've kind of clamped down a little bit more in the playoffs, but granted, one of the teams they played against was the Denver Broncos, so you can't really, those numbers skew it right off the bat. And we just had Jeff Howe from New England Sports Network on, where he's a Patriots beat reporter there. And I was picking on him a little bit about, Julian Edelman in the secondary. That just looks like prime pickings for the for the Jets passing. The Jets can't even make the playoffs. Who am I fooling anybody with? The Giants passing game, especially with the 3 talented guys they have in the wide receiver corps.
Now, going with the numbers that you had talked about here, with the 70 completions and more than 20 yards, do you think then? I mean, logic says to me that New England's going to do everything they can to double Victor Cruz, keep a safety over the top at all times, things of that nature, and make the Giants beat them underneath. I mean, is that how you expect it to play out?
Well, absolutely. I don't know why they wouldn't be game planning that. They've got every reason in the world. We've got every reason in the world to think that that's how they're going to come out and do this. And plus, I mean, we're not talking about grade A personnel. This is, not news or anything. But I mean, it's shocking to look. Do you realize that there's been 16 players that have played in the secondary for New England this season alone? It's insane. It's almost like one new guy a year. So it's tough to really kind of rely on those guys. And again, like you said, Edelman, I mean, Julian Edelman playing 27 snaps on defense, he matches his own offensive snaps, so you got a guy back there that you're going to have to rely on for one of those roles that you just indicated there. And I don't know, it seems like a pretty decent hole, an area where possibly Giants fans can have a lot of hope.
And Chris, going back to Week 9 when these two teams played and the Giants won 24-20, I mean, there were so many injuries on both sides of the ball. These teams look totally different in a lot of regards to where they are today. I mean, when you look at the numbers, how do you evaluate it that way? How do you factor that in?
Well, it's tough. It really was a completely different set of personnel on the field on both sides. The Giants came up with a good defensive game plan, of course, getting pressure to Tom Brady, made him make some bad decisions, and you guys talked about that in your previous segment, the difference between bad decisions and just throwing bad balls. But the Giants game plan for that, and they were prepared. New England certainly is familiar with the outcome of that game naturally, and they're probably going to game plan differently from that. But there's more personnel on the field on both sides of the ball. I think we're going to see a completely different type of game than we saw last time. I don't know if the outcome is going to be any different, but I don't know if you can really rely too much on the tape from Week 9 just because of really the personnel issues that we saw on the field back then.
Now, Chris, from a fantasy perspective, who is that unsung hero for those still playing in challenges that you really think can be a difference maker in here? We've got about 2 minutes before the break right now, but I definitely want to keep you around after the break, too, because there's still a lot more I want to talk with you about.
Yeah, I'm actually, I actually liked how Aaron Hernandez, he's not unsung by any means, but, Gronk's got a little bit of an injury. He's going to be off the injury report by next week is what a lot of people are indicating, even though he showed up today without a practice. But you really got to like, in that defense that's really solid for the Giants, their one weakness is actually that they're number 8 versus fantasy tight ends in the last 6 weeks. That's double digits a game. Obviously, you're going to get the wide receiver type production, on one side of the ball from the Patriots. But you kind of have to like both sides of the ball in this case. So I really like Aaron Hernandez as my guy, even over Gronk in this matchup, not just because of the injury, but because of the way the matchups work. So he's not necessarily unsung, but he's a guy that I really do like in this matchup because of the numbers. He
is Chris Anthony from Fantasyomatic.com. They do an absolutely tremendous job breaking down the numbers. If you want to get in with Chris, the number's 888-XM-FANTASY. That's 888-963-2682. We've got a break coming up, but Chris is going to hang out with us. If you want to get in with him, definitely get on the telephone. And we want to remind everybody, get a full schedule of college basketball game times and channels at SiriusXM.com/college basketball schedule. He's Corey Benini. I'm Ryan Benini. This is Big Lead Sports on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.